It was the hottest Fantastic Four book of the 1990s, but I just got it for $1. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Daryl. I am the host of Read Your Comics. And as we barrel towards Fantastic Four First Steps, we're taking a look at classic FF stories from every era, the good and the bad. Where does this one fall? This was a hot book back in the 90s. It placed in the Wizard Top 10 list many months, all because of a big cataclysmic event that would shape the title for the next few years. But ultimately, they still ended up giving Fantastic Four to Jim Lee just 3 years later. So even as impactful as it was, the Fantastic Four sales just continued to dip and dip over the next 3 years until we eventually lost the original numbering. And as I was saying, this was a hot book. I didn't actually have this one off the rack. I wasn't a regular FF collector. I mostly would pick it up for crossover stuff. But because this one was drawing so much attention in the comics media, I did end up picking up FF. And it's a pretty strong run, I would say, after this title. But this one was hard to get. I could never find it. And when I did, it would be like a $10, $15 book back then, which was a lot for a single issue of a new book back then. So I never actually had it. I recently got it for $1. It wasn't something I was looking for. I was just digging through dollar bins and I saw this one and I was like, oh man, that was that book that was so hot way back in the day. And even though I knew what happened in it, to read the issues after it, I'd never actually read this issue. So for $1, I had to grab it and read it. And I thought it'd be a fun one to cover for this FF series I'm doing as we barrel towards Fantastic Four First Steps later this summer. If you've missed any of my other FF videos, you can find them in the playlist right here. And if you're new to the channel or just haven't done so already, be sure to hit subscribe. You wouldn't believe how many return viewers I get that are not subscribed. So double check, make sure you're subscribed. Do that now so you don't miss any future videos. If you don't subscribe, eventually YouTube just quits feeding it to you. So go ahead and do that. So we have an ominous cover here where it says, Fantastic Four, four no more. We've got the big knot symbol over the 4 here and in the corner box. Our characters are silhouetted. That's leading us to believe that something major is going to happen. I don't recall it being promoted that way, leading up to the issue. I was pretty into reading Wizard magazine and the comic shop news, things like that were coming out. They were always promoting upcoming books, the previews catalog, or I think it was called Advantage even back then, one of the distributors before Diamond. And, I would look at that stuff and see what was coming, what was being, pushed as a big hot storyline coming out. And I don't remember this being pushed very much, which was probably why it was kind of hard to find. So when this drops with this cover, I don't know that a lot of shops probably had a lot of shelf copies of it. And it was the aftermath of this that kind of picked up some steam, gave Fantastic Four a little sales bump for a minute, but again, like I said, eventually Heroes Reborn would come along not long after this and kind of wipe it all away. Let's go ahead and jump right in. This is in the middle of Tom DeFalco's run. He'd been doing it for, probably at least a year or so. A lot of stuff had happened and changed in the Fantastic Four already, and if you just jump into this, you're going to be like, what in the world is going on? Now, I will say there's been a lot of different eras of the Fantastic Four, and at least the core 4 are all here. Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, Invisible Girl, and Ben Grimm, along with a couple other random characters like this girl, this Scroll Girl, and this character here who is just in some crazy armor, and we'll see who it is in a second. We got Paul Ryan doing the art and Dan Belandi doing inks. I don't know. It says Paul Ryan and Tom DeFalco, pictures, plot, and words. So I don't know if Paul Ryan was involved in the plotting as well. Or maybe they were doing it Marvel method and Tom DeFalco was just giving Paul Ryan, credit for kind of pacing the issue. So the Scroll Girl was actually Johnny's, she says ex-wife in here, but so Johnny married Alicia at one point. I always hated that storyline. And Tom DeFalco, when he came on the title, he quickly revealed that Alicia had been a Skrull. So kind of nulling that whole Alicia and Johnny relationship, which if you're going to get rid of it somehow, that wasn't a bad way to do it. So, of course, Johnny was going to hold it against her for a while that she was tricking him. And she was trying to infiltrate the Fantastic Four, but then she fell in love with Johnny, blah, 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 blah. And then this over here is teenage Franklin in his Psylord armor. And I guess he had just kind of reemerged too. Reed's dad, Nathaniel Richards, had taken him to the future and brought him back and aged him up, which was a way for these comics that were having families. Like, X-Men characters tended to do that. It was a way for him to age the child without aging the rest of the characters, is to, throw him into the time stream and bring him back as a grown-up. One thing to note here too is this utility vest that Reed Richards is wearing. Sue's kind of got one on too. Big trend of the 90's. Cyclops had one, Rogue wore a jacket like that, the Avengers all started wearing jackets like that. I don't know what was going on in the 90's, but all of the Marvel characters started wearing these like utility jackets, and it's kind of funny. So they're in Latveria. Ben had already gone there for some reason. That's something to do with Sharon Carter. And they're taking on Doombots and stuff to rescue Ben outside of Doom's castle. There's also been this big alien presence that has beaten Ben back too. So you get a lot of exposition to catch you up on what was happening in the Fantastic Four. And I don't remember Tom DeFalco doing this in every single Fantastic Four issue of the time. It's been forever since I've looked really at much from that era, but in this one, it is some clunky dialogue. You've got Sue doing a force barrier, and then you've got Franklin. He's taking his helmet off in the battle so that we can see his face, and he's saying, "You look like you're about to collapse from the strain of using your invisible force field." And he calls her mom. She's like, "Don't call me mom," and like explains the whole aged up thing. And this clunky dialogue right here while they're in the middle of this battle. If it's not straight up dialogue, it's thought balloons kind of recapping things. And then we've also got Ben, and he's wearing this helmet. Now, one thing they don't explain in this, oddly enough, is why he's wearing this helmet. So there are a few issues before him and Wolverine got into a tussle, and Wolverine knocked a bunch of the rocks off his face and kind of scarred him. So he put this helmet on, and this is actually from like FF3, I think. Sue gave it to him to put on to cover his head when he got his uniform, and he only wore it for a few panels and was like, "I'm not wearing this stupid thing," and discarded it. But he put it on. Actually, I think I did look at the issue that he puts this on, where they fought Doom in like the Watcher's Citadel, and maybe you can go find the video for it right there. So they find Ben, and he tries to explain. And Doom's there too. Him and Doom had fought this like alien creature before. And Doom even actually looks a little scared himself. And Reed tries to help him up, and Doom refuses in typical Doom fashion. And he starts to explain like what's going on with this alien. And here it is. It's in some kind of like mist form, but then it takes this like demonic looking thing that it's been killing the people of Latveria, and I guess it's kind of absorbed their minds to take the form of something that would like completely terrify them, scare them so much that they'd be like frozen in terror so that it could kill more of them. Doom is already back kind of monitoring what's going on, and this doctor that's with him is marveling at how incredible it is. I love Doom here. "Do not presume to include me in your ignorance, Dr. Gittleson." That's a weird, funny name. And basically Doom is here like, I'm going to absorb this thing's powers. That's what I do. I'm Dr. Doom. There's a big, powerful cosmic creature that I lured to Earth for the reason of absorbing its powers. That's what he does. That's what he always does. That's why when I looked at the last Fantastic Four story by Stan Lee a few weeks back, and there was this big creature that Doom just went and attacked straight on, made no attempt to absorb the power, and I thought that was really out of character for Dr. Doom. This is kind of funny too, where this boy is frowning, and man, he drew a hard frown on him. And the father's like, "You must smile, it is ordered by the master." So I guess the people of Latveria are ordered to smile at all times. And you've got the Fantastic Four then are trying to warn them that there's danger. And of course, they don't believe them. They eat up the Doom propaganda that the Fantastic Four are the villains. So Johnny and Franklin, teenage Franklin in his Psylord armor, go to take on the demon thing. And it's just clunky dialogue all around through here. I'll be honest, it was kind of hard to read just because they really get into that explaining what you see in the art happening. And even this is clunky with Johnny and Franklin being blasted back, and Legia's concerned for him, and Sue's just like, "There's nothing we can do for him now." And I guess I should say that she's wary of Franklin. She doesn't believe that teenage Franklin is really her son. She called him a fraud earlier. And then Legia, in her thought balloon, Johnny betrayed me. He turned against me when he first discovered I was a Skrull. It's like, well, what do you think he would do? But it's like, it's just weird placement. It's like, why is she going through all these thoughts? Why do we have to see these thoughts in this moment? It's all fine, like storyline, soap opera aspect of the story, but it just gets clunky when they shoehorn in these word balloons and stuff. So now we're just going to get some action with the Thing, fighting this alien that's taken on the look of a demon. And they all kind of take their turns at it. And it does some neat things, like it's freezing Reed, so he basically freezing his elasticity. Sue's able to save him. Legia, the Skrull, blasted, and then a ship shows up, and it kind of scares it off for the moment. And it's that guy that was with Doom saying, like, the Master requests your assistance. Of course, they have to question, it's really a trap. Is Doom really just trying to set him up? And Reed's like, normally I would say yes, but this is a dire situation. Doom cares about his people. He wouldn't put them in danger just to attack us. He probably does need our help. So Doom invites him in, and they have a discussion about how they're going to attack the alien here. Sue is dealing with some ramifications of, I guess, being Malice not too long ago. Not all the way back to the Burn run. She reverted back to it again for a period of a few issues, and post Malice she put on her worst costume ever, but thankfully she put on this jacket with the thick shoulder pads there. I like this panel. Paul Ryan's pretty good. I do like Paul Ryan on this title. I think he doesn't try to just do Kirby. He's almost a little blend between the stuff that like Ron Friends did as Kirby and also trying to pull in a little bit of that Burn aspect too. But he does cool like little panels like this, like Reed just stretching out to, touch her shoulder and say that he needs a hand. Meanwhile, they're back to chasing the demon thing again out in the streets. Here's Legia using her morphing powers to help save Johnny. And they're just kind of having their moment where they realize that they do like each other. I kind of liked Legia. Once they turned her into a Skrull, I liked the dynamic of she had been trying to infiltrate the FF, but then fell for Johnny. And then when she was revealed, Johnny had to come to terms with it and realize that she does have feelings for him. It was a nice like soap opera-y dynamic going on for quite a while through the Fantastic Four here. And this is still kind of early on in that stage of things where they're basically like coming to like each other again. I don't know what happened to her in the long run. She was around up until Heroes Reborn and then just gone. They didn't bring her back really. They probably brought her back and addressed it at some point, but I'm unaware. They didn't do it in the immediate aftermath of Heroes Return. So here Doom's thinking about how he's going to steal the powers. He's telling Reed how he needs his help to destroy the creature, which he does want to destroy the creature and save his people. But at the same time, he wants to steal the powers. And if, Reed Richards ends up being collateral damage, he's not going to lose any sleep over it. So the plan is for Reed to use these, like, cords to go touch the creature. Sue's going to cover him with a force field to get close enough. And that's what they kind of try to do. Sue's always struggling to use her force field these days. I don't know if something was going on that, they were trying to, maybe they got her too powerful and now they were trying to dampen her powers down a little bit, because every time she's trying to use her powers, she's always like, I can't, it's hard. And Reed gets blasted. You get good panels of Reed getting blasted and being all stretchy and flopping around because she couldn't hold it long enough. And then the machine blows up, like the energy recoils, blows the machine up, and something about like he had some Watcher technology still from when they fought at the Watcher's Citadel here. And Doom starts to even think about his own exit. He's like, this is a failure, but I've got to preserve myself. When all of a sudden you see, Master, you've come at last. And it's the man we saw earlier with his son. And like, oh, all hope is not lost. You're here to save us and help us. And, at that point, Doom is like, I do have a duty to my people. I have to stop this. So that's pretty much what Doom's going to do. He's going to go in and attack the creature. Ben even mentions how corny the dialogue is here. I wanted to point that out because it was funny when I read it. The creature says, "Fool, you have only placed yourself at my mercy." Oh, man. I'd slap a malpractice suit on the scripter for a cornball dialogue like that. Yeah, Tom, you probably should have. You probably should have. Okay, so Doom goes and attacks it. He used a little bit of energy, I guess, from the Watcher technology to help himself. And he just essentially, has a little battle. Gets blasted with some rays there. Johnny's like, he never had a chance. He's being roasted alive in his armor. Even a creep like that deserves better, but it's too late for us to help him now. And just when you think Doom is done, and outwardly he's saying never, but in his mind he is kind of thinking he's done, but he's like, there must be a way. There's always a way. And I guess he sees the thing that Reed had earlier, and he's able to blast the creature and do something with it. Who knows what. And he's done. He's like beat to death. His injury's too severe. Reed's like, we'll get a doctor. And Doom reaches out. No, it's too late. Richards, I need your help. Of course, Doom. Here, take my hand. A final task remaining, Richards. One which I must not leave unfinished. What is it? A goal which has consumed far too much of my adult life. And now, when I am so weak, so near death, I find myself forced to rely upon your kindness, your assistance. I cannot leave this mortal coil without bringing our bitter rivalry to its destined conclusion by destroying you. This was not a great page turn. This panel should have been on the last page, and this should have been the page turn. Just this part. And maybe this part too. But it's almost like kind of a rushed little bit because we have to use dialogue to say there's nothing left but a pile of dust, meaning like they were vaporized. And they're gone. And that's it. And like, typically you would be like, okay, we're going to find out what happened to them in the next issue. We don't. They're dead. As far as the FF book goes, Reed Richards and Dr. Doom are dead, and they're dead for like 2 years. The FF team goes through a lot of changes. Sue becomes the leader. Johnny and Ben are around, of course, but Legia's a member. We find out what happens to Latveria is Kristoff returns, and Kristoff even joins the FF. Scott Lang Ant-Man joins the FF. It's a wild 2-year run before Reed Richards comes back. And that's why this book was so hot. And I don't think it took off immediately. I think it was about 2 or 3 months into it when like Wizard and the other publications like that realized like, oh, Reed Richards is dead for a while, like at least for the foreseeable future that we know of. And so that's why this book became kind of a hot commodity and was hard to find for a long time. Like I said, I never actually had this, but it was shortly after that I did start picking up the FF. They started doing like a time travel story where they had some like homage covers and stuff. And that's kind of what brought me in. And I stuck with FF for years after that, and then went back and picked up all the Byrne stuff, as much of the Kirby stuff as I could, which I have read to this date. But in a weird way, this book, without me reading it off the shelf, is something that would kind of hook me into Fantastic Four as like a big Fantastic Four, as a permanent Fantastic Four fan. Before this, it was very, pick up an issue here and there, but not really stick with it very long. Having said that, and reading this as a standalone issue, I don't think it's a great issue. The clunky dialogue throughout it really drags it down. The space creature that takes on a demon form kind of generic. I mean, I'm not going to say that that's not something like Kirby and Stan Lee would have done in their run. So I don't want to be too harsh, but because they would have done it back then doesn't mean that it should have been done 30 years into the title. A little too formulaic, I guess. Doom trying to steal the powers of something, some cosmic creature. Of course, that holds true to the character. I like that aspect of it. I like that he wasn't going to go down without taking Reed Richards with him. That stuff works. And there was the other little soap opera things in here going on I do like, but it's just the clunkiness of the dialogue, of the situations, Franklin taking his helmet off, just so that's who this is. This is Franklin. This is teenage Franklin. And we're going to have, in the middle of this battle, a big moment where Sue has to say, like, I don't trust you. I don't think you're really my son, and all this stuff. It's just, it didn't work for this one book, I don't think. Cool cover, though. I mean, it gets your attention, but so many times they advertise, like, somebody dies, the Fantastic Four are breaking up, or whatever, or the X-Men are leaving, and in this issue, an X-Men is gone for good, kind of thing like that. It comes across like that, which is probably why it didn't get a lot of early build-up. It was probably smart. I wish Marvel would do more stuff like this, even today, where they don't tell you what's going to happen and let the book just kind of drop. And if it takes off, do multiple printings. I don't know if this book had multiple printings. Honestly, it may have. But that's it. That's all I got for this one. I feel like I was a little negative on the Tom DeFalco run because it is pretty fun overall. So don't take my negative rantings on this particular issue as a commentary across the whole Tom DeFalco era of FF. It is a pretty fun era. So until next time, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.